The event was the McDonald's World Impact Summit, an unusual setting for a political address, but one where Trump was expected to speak about affordability and the economic pressures facing American families. Instead, right from the beginning, the speech felt unfocused. Trump shifted between praising his administration's economic record, dismissing concerns about rising costs, and reassuring donors that he would oppose minimum wage increases. It was a message that clashed with the theme of the event and with the daily realities millions of Americans face. And then slowly, the speech began drifting into something else. Long pauses, unfinished sentences, stories that didn't quite connect. People in the room noticed, and people watching online noticed too. The turning point came when Trump launched into a story about unbelievable activity at a McDonald's near a military base. What followed was a string of disconnected details. A surge in business, pilots being devastated, something being canceled, then put back. No one seemed to understand who canceled what or why. Even Trump appeared to lose the thread mid-sentence. It wasn't humorous. It wasn't sharp political improvisation. It felt disoriented. There are times in public life when a speaker simply misspeaks. This did not feel like one of those times. This felt like a moment where the momentum of the speech slipped entirely out of the speaker's hands. What followed raised even more questions. Without any transition, Trump began talking about Coca-Cola switching to cane sugar, then shifted again to the Gulf of Mexico, suggesting it should be renamed the Gulf of America. The ideas didn't connect, the pace was uneven, and the tone was unusually scattered. For a former president, someone whose words can move markets and be replayed in foreign capitals, this kind of public drift is jarring. Even supporters online began asking whether he was tired, stressed, or simply unprepared. Critics wondered aloud if it was something more. But regardless of political affiliation, one thing was clear. This wasn't normal. As the speech continued, Trump began reenacting military maneuvers, leaning sideways, imitating the tilt of a jet releasing bombs, and repeatedly referencing a phrase he claimed pilots used: skedaddle. The demonstration was vivid but confusing. There was no clear connection to policy, national security, or the topic of affordability. It was unclear whether the story itself was real or symbolic. Then came another unexpected moment. Trump describing how a McDonald's worker flips French fries, demonstrating the wrist motion on stage. He joked, he paused, he seemed to talk himself in circles, drifting into personal stories, references to politicians, and disconnected thoughts about big hands and eating McDonald's on private jets. It wasn't outrageous. It was uncomfortable. Not because of politics, but because it didn't feel grounded. Now, this is where we step back. This story isn't just about one speech, and it's not about whether someone supports or opposes Donald Trump. It's about leadership. The world watches U.S. political figures closely, especially former presidents who may run again. Stability matters, coherence matters. The ability to speak clearly, consistently, and with direction matters. Because when American leaders seem unfocused or confused, it affects global confidence in U.S. leadership, allied trust in American decision-making, geopolitical adversaries assessing U.S. resolve, foreign market responses to political uncertainty. This isn't speculation, it's how nations operate. When a former president appears off balance on stage, foreign intelligence agencies don't see it as a clip to laugh at. They see it as data. But beyond strategy and geopolitics, there's another part of this story, the human part. It's possible this was stress. It's possible it was exhaustion. It's possible it was simply a bad night. Everyone, including political figures, is human. People forget words. People lose their train of thought. People stumble. But when someone who may again hold the highest office in the world has a moment that looks like this, the public begins asking reasonable questions, not out of cruelty, not out of partisanship, but out of concern. Leadership demands clarity. It demands stability. It demands consistency, especially in a global environment already filled with uncertainty, conflict, and volatility. What happened at the McDonald's summit wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a viral joke. It was a moment that made people pause, and sometimes those are the moments that matter most, the ones that force a country to look closely, to ask difficult questions, and to consider what leadership should look like during times of global tension.